Welcome back, everyone. This is a follow-up video on my Barrow cooler review. So this is an all-in-one cooler from Barrow that has a reservoir, pump, and the radiator all attached into one piece. I made a full a video kind of reviewing this, but in this episode we'll be connecting this into a loop, and we'll be getting some numbers off of it. Now I will do the test in two ways. So the first numbers that I will try and get will be by connecting the 240 Barrow directly to this 4080, which is about 320 watts of TDP, thermal heating. So we will see how well it cools this GPU. Now this is a new block, so we'll be getting the numbers on that, and then I will actually try and connect the Barrow plus one of the other radiators, or maybe even both, just to test the strength of this pump and to see how much better it does. I don't really have any concerns with the pump strength. This seems to be a decent pump, but my main curiosity is to see if when we have multiple radiators, if we no longer have an issue with the reservoir being too small. So I will try and get numbers for all that, and I will list it on the screen when it's just so we'll basically go in the radiator alone first, so just this one unit, and then we will add a second or even a third radiator, and I'll mention that again, and we'll get numbers to see how well this performs. Alright, so let's get right into it. Oh yes, and in regards to what this 4080 is going into, I will put it in the Threadripper build that I have, which I need to clean soon. So we're not really caring about the CPU and all the other parts. This will go, it will at first go into a new slot, and then it will replace this 1080 Ti when we connect it to the other radiators. But we will be using a synthetic, like a benchmark to keep the heat constant. So this is more or less the setup. So we will just basically connect this here, and I will actually leave the AIO will be outside the case. I am using some MSI fans, but they're fairly comparable with the stock fans. If anything, I would say these move a little bit less air, but they use regular connectors, and I did not want to wire all the fans. Actually, yeah, the stock fans are on the top right now. So I guess I could move them over, but I'll see how I feel. Actually, no, yep, they're there. Yeah, I'll probably not move those over, to be honest. But I will run some numbers real quick with just this on the GPU. Again, this will be outside the case, so it's getting its best case scenario, essentially. And then once I get those numbers, I'm going to connect it in the loop with everything and see what this can do. I do have to try and disconnect the normal reservoir and pump here, because I want just this reservoir and pump to run all of this. So I basically will have to have this intercept the original reservoir that I have in the front right now. But yeah, let me run some numbers, fill it all up, do all the work, and you guys just sit back, relax, and enjoy the numbers. Alright, now for the numbers, so this was actually a little bit boring in a good way. So if you see in 5 minutes into combustor, again, this is just the radiator on to the 4080, so the 240. But in about 5 minutes, we reached almost 52 degrees. We reached a little bit over, basically let's call it 53 at 10 minutes. But basically within the first 5 or 10 minutes, we are already stabilized in temperature due to the very low quantity of water. It did go up a little bit to 53 degrees at 15-minute mark, but it was actually bouncing up and down by about a degree or so. So I did catch the screenshot when it was a tiny bit higher, because if we look now at the 20-minute mark, it actually dropped back down to 52.5. And then pretty much the same thing at 30 minutes. So I went all the way to 30 minutes for this test just for sanity's sake, but the coolant temperature was actually stabilized and looking solid. Afterwards, I threw the MSI donut, or whatever they call it, at it, and it was pretty much more of the same. So I got bored and hopped down in Cyberpunk, where temperatures got even better. So in 15 minutes, it got to about 44 degrees Celsius. However, the hotspot was a little higher, but this is more of the block than the AIO itself. So with all this out of the way, I disconnected everything again, redrained all the loops and everything, and connected it into the third rad. So this is actually fantastic results here. So it went down all the way to 46, and even with 3 rads, I was actually very surprised by how quickly it stabilized. Now at 20 minutes, it was still climbing up, so a lot slower than the 5 minutes, but it's still pretty quick how it did actually stabilize. But yeah, the pump can absolutely run 3 radiators. In fact, I'm sure it can run even 4 or 5. I still kept it on low power even with the 3 rads connected. And also for the test, do keep in mind that when I connected the 3 rads, I added about another 150 watts of TDP, as I basically put a CPU in the loop as well. So I did add an extra CPU, as that seemed more realistic than having 3 radiators just cooling a GPU, as obviously even just the 240 millimeter radiator is actually plenty for this 4080. To be honest, I'm pretty sure it can cool a 5090 easily as well, or just about right, I would call it. So if you do want to expand later in the future, it's nice to know that it is an option to add an extra radiator, but I would still add an additional reservoir to help the bubbles basically stay up top of the loop. I'm not really sure what I would recommend for configuration, because technically having this radiator up top with the pump would probably make most sense to clear the bubbles out, but then the bubbles will, well, the air will get stuck on the top, which will be in the rad, so then they're more likely to, once the fluid level drops, to make their way back into the pump and start breaking stuff. So it's a little tricky, but this is an absolutely phenomenal product if you need to cool a graphics card, especially like in a small form factor build. So as a conclusive thoughts, this is a great product, but the air does recirculate back into the pump, and I've had even more trouble keep getting the bubbles out and basically bleeding out the air of the system with 3 radiators. Now the little switch was great to help with that, to basically speed up the process and, well, speed up and slow down the pump to try and get the air out, but I want to say it was 2 days later, and I still had a whole bunch of air in my loop. But yeah, that's about it. That's my opinion. It's a great product. So thank you for watching the video. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to leave them below, and I'll be glad to answer them. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful day.